Hi, welcome back to PC Builder. I'm Jason. This is our monthly CPU update for March. There are huge, massive price cuts right now. AMD is taking a machete and slashing prices. Is Intel going to respond? We'll check out the best price performance CPUs in March of 2023 and which ones you should be buying. We'll also take a look at the launch of the 7950X3D. Did it sell out? What's the performance? Should you be getting it? Remember, if you get value out of the video, give it a like, as it makes a huge difference to the channel, especially this guy right here. And of course, subscribe and click that bell icon. That way you get notified when we release cool content. With that, let's jump into it. Before that, this video is sponsored by VIP SCD Key. Say goodbye to crazy expensive Windows 10 licenses and that terrible Activate Windows 10 watermark. Right now, use the links in the video description, head over to VIP SCD Key, and get a Windows 10 Home or Pro OEM license for a great price. Pick your product license, then use the PC Builder discount code PC25 for an additional 25% off. Go to the activation settings on your PC, put in the code, and boom, you have a fully licensed Windows 10 for a crazy low price, which can be upgraded for free to Windows 11. Use the links in the video description below. Now, before we jump into individual CPU pricing, I want to go through this. AMD has announced, starting on February 27th, going all the way through April 1st. I'm actually filming this kind of about a week into this, a big combo bundle deal for Ryzen 7000 CPUs, which include discounts on the processors, the DDR5 RAM kits by Kingston, Corsair, ADATA, and Giel, as well as AM5 motherboards, X670 and B650. You're also going to get a copy of Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Maybe you're not looking forward to that game. I certainly am really looking forward to that game. Absolutely loved the initial one. Really looking forward to the sequel. Hope it lives up to the previous title. So you're getting all that for basically a huge discount if you buy AM5 right now. Now, these deals are available at Amazon, at Newegg, and at Micro Center. So check out those links down in the video description for a shortcut. The other thing is that right now, at the time of filming, Newegg is the only one offering RAM in that combo, as well as just not motherboards and processors. So we've got the Ryzen 7600X, we've got an MSI Pro B650-P Wi-Fi, it's entry-level motherboard, pretty good. And then we've got a decent kit, a DDR5 5600 CL36 RAM. It's a 2x8 gigabyte, 16 gigabyte total kit. Now, all told, this would normally be $542, and you're going to get it for $55 less for $486. So it's about a 10% savings. Honestly, pretty good deal right now if you're looking to build a new system. Now, there are some combos right now listed on the Amazon website. However, when I went in here and added them up, there were no discounts applied to them. I didn't quite understand what was going on. So I did reach out to AMD, who told me these are not the deals you're looking for. These are old deals. Apparently, they are going to have them go live relatively soon on Amazon, and they should include RAM. As soon as they go live, we will have links to them down in the video description, so check those out. Let's jump into current CPU pricing in March. Obviously, the last time we took a look at this was late January, and you can see a lot of green out there, a lot of price cuts. That's what we like to see in the CPU market. Jumping in, let's go budget CPUs first. So the Ryzen 5500, 5600G, effectively no change, but the 5600 has come down to $129. It's another $10 discount. Effectively, the Black Friday pricing got down to $120. Close enough though, down from $139 in January. Two thumbs up right there. Fantastic CPU to be building budget, even mid-range gaming PCs with right now. Then we've got the 5700X down to $179. That's down about 8%. Super good discounts on these. The 5800X3D also down from $336 in January to $308 in March. Love to see these CPUs fall. Effectively unchanged for the 5900X, slight discount for the 5950X. But if we take a look at Ryzen 7000, other than the 7600, which hasn't really changed, the 7700X is on kind of super sale right now for $298. Really, really phenomenal value, and something we'll take a look at in our best price to performance CPUs for gaming and productivity later in the video. Then, of course, we got the 7900X3D and 7950X3D at their launch MSRPs of $599 and $699, though they are largely sold out as I'm filming this. They just came out a couple days ago. I do expect stock to kind of matriculate back in. I don't expect these are going to be the biggest sellers in the world. It's probably just more limited stock on the AMD side. I know a lot of folks out there are waiting for the 7800X3D, and we'll talk more about the performance of these CPUs later in the video. Then finally, down 3% on the Ryzen 7950X to $573. So overall, really good discounts. And if you take a look at Ryzen 7000, it's down anywhere about 18 to 25% since the launch. So those are huge CPU discounts that that we just didn't see with the previous generation. Jumping over to the Intel CPU side, we do see that we are getting some price cuts, though I will say it's primarily small stuff. Let's take a look at the budget. i3 12100F, no change right now. i3 13100F, down $5 to $120. Really, in my estimation, that CPU needs to be much cheaper. And we'll take a look from a price to performance standpoint later in the video where it falls out versus the 5600. i5 12400F still stuck at $164, a little overpriced in my opinion. i5 12600K has come down to $213. That is nice for an unlocked CPU. 13400F, which is effectively a locked version of the 12600K, $209, effectively unchanged. 13600K sees a small price discount. Now that's the KF version, by the way, not the K, to $295. That's nice, but on 12th gen unlocked CPUs like the i7 and i9 is where we see the biggest discounts right now, with the i7 12700KF down to $259 and the i9 12900K down to $352. But will that be enough to bring them into price to performance competition with the 13th gen as well as Ryzen 7000 right now? We'll see later in the video. Before we jump in and talk about the Ryzen 7000X3D launch and its performance, let's talk about something that's critical to Ryzen 7000 period, which is DDR5 pricing. Now, we've gone over in previous videos how terrible DDR5 pricing has been, how sky high it's been. Why isn't it coming down yet? Well, I got good news for you. Good news. DDR5 seems to be tanking. The price seems to be absolutely tanking. Let's go through a couple of examples here. So we've got a couple memory kits. Now, these are 16 gigabyte memory kits, 2x8 gigabyte. DDR5 5600CL36. We even have an Expo kit down here at $89. Now this one's back ordered right now. There's XMP kits on here as well, all under $100. Now that in itself was great news, and we've known that for a little while. I think the even better news is that the 32 gigabyte kits of super fast RAM, so this is with Expo timings on them, not just XMP, but Expo timings, for $125. For only about $30 more, you can get DDR5 5600CL30. So this is considerably faster RAM, 32 gigs of it, and it's only about $30 more. I think these kits are finally starting to make some sense. About a month or so ago, this kit was still like $160, $170. And if you're looking for the super fast RAM that gets sent to the reviewers, which is the G.Skill Triton Z Neo series, this is AMD Expo memory. So DDR5 6000 CL30. So super fast, only $149. Now this RAM was previously like $250. So it's come down massively. So if you're looking to build Ryzen 7000, great news. And honestly, if you're looking to build Intel on the DDR5 side, the DDR5 6400 CL32 kits that a lot of reviewers use right now to see those super high 13th gen Intel results, that's coming down as well. I don't think we're at the price to performance point yet where that kind of makes a better argument than DDR4, because DDR4 prices continue to fall as well. That being said, it's becoming more and more viable every day, and that's great news for system builders. Also want to note another area that Ryzen 7000 costs are coming down. In addition to the DDR5 costs coming down, the motherboard pricing is finally coming down. Now, we still have not hit that $125 plus level that AMD said that these boards would start at, but we've got like the Gigabyte B650M DS3H now selling for $139. That's $149 with a $10 off promo code. And we've got a number of other motherboards sitting at that $180 level. Now, I've used $180 for our price to performance calculations later in the video, but just note that these motherboard prices do seem to be finally falling. So that's another win in the column for Ryzen 7000 and honestly for PC builders out there. So let's talk about the Ryzen 7900X3D and 7950X3D launch and performance, and what do I think about them? Well, starting off, $599 for the 79X3D, $699 for the 7950X3D. Which one's missing? Yes, that's this one right here, this 7800X3D. That's not going to come out until April 6th. So a lot of people are wondering, should you consider getting the 7900X3D or 7950X3D? Do either one of those make sense right now? Especially given that they clock much higher at up to 5.7 gigahertz or up to 5.6 gigahertz on the boost versus only 5 gigahertz on the 7800X3D. So the clocks are actually lower on that. So what might that portend? If you look at the results, we're using the Tech Power Up ones right here. I've looked at some other ones as well. I'll leave a link to this one down in the video description since we're showing it here. Just taking the stock settings, that's this green bar here, the 7950X3D, found that basically it's 100% equivalent to a 13900K at 1080p. Now, other reviews found it slightly faster than the 13900K at 1080p. Could be a lot of different reasons for that. Reviewers using different games, different settings. And if you look at it, it looks like, hey, compared to the Ryzen 7700, it's about 13% faster. The 7700 is about 13% slower than the 7950X3D. So it looks like, hey, maybe there is some good value right there. But if we pop it up to 1440p, something interesting happens. Now, 13900K is 2% ahead. Again, very, very small difference, can be a lot of different things. But the 7700 is now only 9% behind. Well, that's kind of interesting. What happens if we pop it up to 4K? All of a sudden we're only about 4% behind this 7950X3D. So that's pretty crazy. And one other thing I want to note about Tech Power Ups, I did look at their test system. They're using slower RAM than most of the other outlets. So they're using DDR5 6000 CL36, not the DDR5 6000 CL30 kits that reviewers typically get sent by AMD. That's particularly interesting because Hardware Unboxed found that the 7900X3D, 7950X3D did not scale with faster RAM as much because the V-cache on the chip just takes care of so much. But Ryzen 7000 non-V-cache does scale better with RAM. So it's possible with faster RAM in here that the 7700, 7700X would look even better by comparison to the 7950X3D. And honestly, here's why those test results are so crazy. Because if we take a look, and everybody tested in 1080p, I get it. It takes a long time to do benchmarks. Most of the benchmarks they've already done are 1080p because 1080p has made sense for a very, very long time. The same way that 720p made sense for a very, very long time beforehand. But let me ask you this. So I went ahead and did an example build here using relatively mid-range-ish, not even high-end components for a 7950X3D, RTX 4090, including an MSRP 4090 right now for $1,599. The build comes out to $3,317, and I'm missing some fans and things like that. So let's call it $3,400 by the time you're out the door with everything. $3,400. Who is spending $3,400 US right now to play at 1080p? So I understand the methodology. I understand why it's being tested that way. I would just submit that when testing these high-end parts with high-end graphics cards like the RTX 4090, that maybe what we should consider is what we considered with 720p is at some point we need to drop 1080p testing, focus instead on 1440p and 4K, because anybody who's spending this much on this system is going to be playing at least at 1440p, but probably more than likely at 4K because the CPUs are becoming so fast, the GPUs are becoming so fast that maybe it is time to abandon 1080p testing, and that 1080p data is not helping us answer the question of whether or not somebody should actually buy this to build the kind of system that would get built with it. Let's jump into the best gaming CPU and production CPU in March 2023. If you're not familiar with how we do this, in our spreadsheet, we basically take the total platform cost. So we take the cost of the CPU, we take the cost of the RAM, we take the cost of the motherboard and the cooler, we add it together and we get a gaming cost. We divide that gaming cost by the gaming score. Those gaming scores are pegged to the i3 12100F. They're a percentage faster than that. And we get a price of performance. On the production side, we do use 32 gigs of RAM. On the gaming side, we use 16 gigs of RAM standard. And of course, we've got all of our costs in the spreadsheet as well, what all the motherboards cost, what all the RAM kits cost, all of our assumptions. And there is a link to the spreadsheet down in the video description. If you don't like the way we put together the systems, if you don't like the cost because they don't reflect costs in your region, go ahead, feel free, do your own analysis. Starting off at the best budget gaming CPU, so the CPU with the total platform price of less than $400. Look at that, the Ryzen 5600 just gonna maintain that spot right now at number one in terms of price to performance at a $2.37 price to performance. The reason is the B550 motherboards continue to be super cheap. Now you'll notice that the Ryzen 5500 has fallen way down in the stack. You're like, what the heck is going on? All those cheap B450 motherboards with BIOS flashback out there, which you still probably need for a Ryzen 5500, have completely gone out of stock. So right now you're using essentially a B550 for that, and it doesn't really give you any kind of cost savings the way it was giving you. 5600 just is highly more performative, and for a $277 total cost, even beats out the i3 1200F, i3 13100F. Now look, those are relatively close. That being said, the 5600 has more performance. Not sure why you would go with the 1200F or 13100F right now. Honestly, if you want to go up in terms of performance slightly, probably looking at 5700X. That nice little price discount came down to $179, and using the same motherboard as the 5600, you go up to about $367. But I really would stick with that 5600 if you want to build something right now at the budget or even maybe in the mid-range. Mid-range production system, so this is where the multi-core score is a little greater than 160, but the price is still less than $700. Remember, we're going with 32 gigabytes DDR4 or DDR5 here. Look at that, the 5700X, again, price reduction on that, going with a cheaper B550 motherboards, comes in at just $393. $2.20 price to performance. Now that being said, the 13600K slightly trailing the 12700F, I would really go with the 13600K here with DDR4 memory and a quality Z690 motherboard, mid-tower air cooler. Comes in at $650, but we're talking a lot of performance here. That 13600K, super duper powerful. That is honestly where I would be looking right now. I know a lot of folks interested in the 13400F because it's basically like a cut down 12600K. While it's overall the cost is lower at $403, I don't know why you'd build that over the 5700X system, and I don't know why you'd build it over the 13600K. Those will be my top choices. Jumping over to the best mid-range gaming CPU in March 2023, and honestly, this is a little bit more nuanced. The Ryzen 7600 really does kind of take the cake here. $3.28 gaming price performance. Now, I have equipped that with a budget B650 motherboard. If we did instead go with a quality B650, the price would be about 40 or 50 bucks more. Still would be in the lead, but the 5800X3D might actually slightly edge it. So I think either of those systems is perfectly viable. If you're looking for more performance, about the same price point, then definitely the 7700 non-X with a stock cooler and a quality B650 motherboard, good kit of DDR5. It's coming at $628. That's really, really tough to beat. Honestly, Intel is really kind of lost out to sea here. Unless you're looking for also having a lot of production work in there, then I think the 13600K does make a lot of sense as kind of a hybrid gaming and production work machine. Overall, though, I think Intel really needs to lower its prices. Jumping into high performance production before we get to high performance gaming, which I know everyone's always waiting for. So here we go. Not a lot of changes at the top. 13900K with DDR4, battling it out with 7950X for the best price to performance CPUs. Honestly, the energy cost probably lean to the 7950X, uses a lot less energy. So in terms of price to performance, better. When we look at this chart, we're not just looking at the high performance price to performance, we're also just looking at the highest performance. 13900K with DDR5 RAM, not that far off to be quite honest, and super high performance, as is the 7950X3D. Now, it's not a great value, but I could definitely see it for somebody who wanted the best of all worlds, and they are a professional who needs that super high performance, almost HEDT type of PC. That being said, look at the 7900X3D. Total trash in terms of its value. I don't understand who that CPU is for. And finally, the best high performance gaming CPU in March 2023. This is with a gaming score of 155 or greater regardless of cost. Ryzen absolutely dominates the charts, both the 7600, 7700, 7900, as well as the 5800X3D, just completely murdering everything else in their path. Now the 13600K is in there with DDR5. It does pretty well. That being said, not in terms of value. And of course, this is not just about the best price to performance, it's also just about the best period. 7900X3D, you could make a value argument for that one because it gives you a lot of the performance in the 7950X3D. That being said, 7950X3D, 13900K with DDR5 RAM, kind of the best of the best, if you will, in quotation marks there. But you can see how far off of a value proposition they are compared to their much more efficient competitors that get most of that performance, especially if you're gaming at 4K as we went through before. Again, if you're somebody who has all the monies and you just have to get the best of the best of the best of the best, 7950X3D, 13900K with fast DDR5 RAM, those are the ones for you. So let's play everyone's favorite game. Should you buy now or should you wait? Well, honestly, we've had a lot of stuff happen since just the beginning of January. Obviously, we had the locked 13th gen CPUs launched. They came in way overpriced. I think a lot of people were hoping that we'd see B760 motherboards that did better than the B660 in terms of price to performance. We haven't really seen that on the Intel side. On the AMD side, we've largely seen the launch of the non-X Ryzen 7000 CPUs, which have drastically reduced prices, and AMD cut the prices on the X CPUs as well. So we've seen just huge price cuts on the AMD side, and now they're jumping in with the 7950X3D, 7900X3D, but we're still waiting on the 7800X3D to see if that makes a difference. So starting off at the budget level, and if you want to build now and you want to build a budget gaming PC, especially given that we have really no information on when NVIDIA or AMD are ever going to launch lower end GPUs. And given the higher performance of those lower end GPUs and their lower costs like the RX 6650 XT, it's really hard to ignore building at the budget level right now if you want to build something. What exactly are you waiting for? We're probably not going to see any more CPUs come out. I think Ryzen 5600 is where you want to be if you really want Intel. No harm in building an i3 12100F system either right now. What if you want to build at the mid-range? Should you wait? Now, this is a really interesting situation, not so much on the CPU side, because you're not going to go out and buy a Ryzen 7800X3D even when it launches. That's like $450 CPU. You'll probably go like a 7600X, maybe a 5800X3D, maybe a 13600K. But what GPU are you pairing it with? You either have to go last gen, or you may reach up to like an RTX 4070 Ti, RX 7900 XT, which now down to $800. Those both might be value, but we do have that kind of shadow looming over us right now. When is the 4070, the 4060 going to launch? When is AMD going to launch competing graphics cards, especially given now that they've cut that price down to $800 for the 7900 XT? The 7800 XT has to come in quite a bit less than that. I would just stand pat for right now. DDR5 pricing is coming down, making Ryzen 7000 even more attractive by the day. If you want to take advantage of some of these super deals that AMD is going to have going on right now, feel free to do it. They're going to throw in a bunch of discounts anyway. It might as well take the discounts now as opposed to waiting for just the prices to naturally fall. You'll probably kind of end up in the same place. If you want to start assembling those components while you wait for that GPU, you can. Then of course we've got the high-end side. So what should high-end builders be looking for if you want an RTX 4080, 4090, RX 7900 XTX? Yeah, you can go ahead if you've got the monies and pull the trigger on the 7950 X3D or a 13900K if you've made your decision between the two at this point. I'd skip the 7900 X3D. You can, of course, wait another, a month and a half for the 7800 X3D. It'll probably sell out initially. You'll probably have to wait for it if you can't get that initial allotment of it. Who knows how long that's going to take? So I understand why people are snapping up the 7950 X3D. It is going to clock a little lower, so it might be the 7950 X3D actually performs better, but you're going to have to wait out there if you want to kind of get that answered, or you could just pull the trigger if you got the money to do so and get a 7950 X3D 13900K, and you're really not waiting for anything else right now. Remember, if you got value out of the video, give it a like. It makes a huge difference to the channel, especially this guy right here. And of course, subscribe and click that bell icon. That way you get notified when we release cool content. Speaking of cool content, if you missed our GPU update where we do the same thing with graphics cards every month, I'll leave it right here. Check it out. What's the best GPU to buy in February and March of 2023? We answer all your questions and more, and we'll catch you on the next one.